Call the meeting of Borough West Easton Council to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, David.
Mr. James.
Here.
Mr. Dees.
Here.
Mr. Lewis. Here. Mr. Romana. Here. Ms. Lake. Mr. Brightinger. Here. Mr. Bolash. Here. And Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. Approval of checks 16803 through 16852 from the general fund account. I need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept. Second.
Any comments?
Yes, check number 16828.
Yeah.
The Monument Electric.
What it is Dan graciously called, had the power disconnected from the monument. We applied the credit that we got of $263 to our street lighting. It's actually the cost of the street lighting, but whatever you put in last, which was the credit amount to the monument, is what shows on your paper.
Okay, so it's not really.
No, it's actually street lighting. The street lighting was about $1,100, and we had a $263 credit or something like that for the monument. We were able to get the money back that we've spent on service fees for the last year, thanks to the mayor.
Expensive monument.
And that I pointed that out at the last
Yes,
meeting.
yes, you did, thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. And you need a check, approval of check number 2070 from the sewer fund account. Motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Any comments?
Why is there only one check here? You did two checks in this category.
This is only for paid just for monthly sewer, monthly water readings. That's it. $4.
It's just
Two checks.
It's just the timing of the month, Bob.
Sorry?
It's just the timing of the month, how meetings fall.
Okay.
Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Approval of deposits and receipts for October 2018. Motion to accept.
I'll accept. Any motion?
And a second.
I'll second.
Any comments? Deposits, receipts? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Approval of minutes, Borough Council meeting minutes, October 8th, 2018. Motion to accept as presented.
Make a motion. I'll second.
Any comments on minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion to accept approval of treasurer's report for October 2018.
Make a motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments, treasurer's report? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Public comment?
Leon Stoll, 306 Second Street. What's going on with the leaf collection?
What?
What's going on with the leaf collection? They haven't collected any leaves at all. People are spending an hour cleaning their yards out, putting them out in the street, and they're blowing on people's properties that don't even have trees because nobody's collecting leaves. I haven't seen, pretty soon they're calling for possible snow this week. Then you're going to be stuck with all these leaves, froze. And I want to know why they're not collecting leaves.
Okay.
The box was put on the truck last week. We tried starting up the leaf blower, and there was an equipment problem with it. We ordered the part, and got it put together on Friday, and he was out Friday prior to the rain with the mayor picking up our what leaves we could get before it started to really pour.
came out earlier in the week too, even though it was sort of broken. You can't do it when they're soaking wet, you know, it rains every other day.
You can pick them up when they're soaking wet, but I've done it with
Yeah, but
it,
you
that machine.
can't leave them in a big box full of all that.
No, I understand that. Another thing is, that water problem I'm having. They came up the other day, Dane and Paul, and it practically stopped raining. Now, I told them the solution for some of the water that's coming out of the sidewalk, and I would appreciate it if either call the contractors or somebody to correct that problem up there. Because the water's coming off of, next to Dietz's property. There's a swell, but the water's not gonna go uphill. So all the rain that comes off that spout runs down the sidewalk, and it's still undermining my sidewalk. You can't just go up there and look at it and say, oh, you know, it looks all right. You can see, if you go down, if I would take my truck and put it up on the sidewalk and ride the end of my sidewalk, I guarantee you, out of 10 slabs, at least 6 of them will cave in because there's nothing underneath them. Now, all we gotta do is go up there to contractors, take that swale, take a grinding wheel, grind it down, put a swale that goes beyond the curb to allow the water to go out in the street instead of running down the sidewalk. Now, when it rains hard, it comes down really bad, and I'm getting tired, you know, I'm gonna bring this up every meeting, so it's on records. So when I decide to do something about it, it should be known. But it's, you know, it's just ridiculous. Send somebody up there, grind it down. You know, at least stop the biggest part of the water that's coming down the side.
How about grinding the sidewalk?
You know, what you gotta do is take a grinding wheel and go to the curb and just start grinding the swale in the curb to allow the water to go out.
They have the floor.
Yeah, because you went and looked at it.
I looked at it, Leon was there, Dane was there. I don't know if anybody else went up, I heard they did. If they did, they can say what they have to say. But there's 2 houses on 2nd Street that their drain pipes from their roofs come out on the sidewalks. One is your neighbor, I forget his name right now. And you can tell where the contractors put a groove in the sidewalk, and then the groove that goes to the curb is a little high. Dane and I talked about that, and he said he might be able to either cut that down so the water doesn't hit the lip of the grass and run down to the next little catch basin that was installed. So when that gets solved, you have one more problem, Leon. Your rain spout comes out of your roof onto your sidewalk.
Sure, it did for 55 years that I lived there.
And
Never had a problem.
And you also have a problem with the side of your house that has no drainage at all.
Sure, I'm not down here about that. I don't get water in my basement. I'm not worried about what's on my property. I'm worried about what the contractors did to create the problem that we have now. You can't turn around and put a curb 3 inches higher than your sidewalk and expect it to drain out in the street.
Well, that's
Now, you go to, you count, if there's 500 homes in West Easton, I guarantee you, at least 400 of them have a curb, spouts that go out on the sidewalks.
right, and you're one of them.
Sure.
Well, then every time it rains, you're going to get water on your sidewalk, like
But
everybody else.
mine goes out in the drain, I never had water down there.
Are you going to tell me that if it rains real hard and all the water that comes off your roof, it goes down your drain pipe, is going to go down that little swale, and none of it's going to run down your sidewalk?
Before they put that curb in, I never had water running beyond my, where I had concrete there in front of my house.
Did they put 2 little catch basins in your area?
Sure.
And did they
You
work?
put a 2-inch drain in for a spout that's, most of them are 3 inches. You know, how's that gonna collect the water?
Well,
If
after
the water would flow out in the street the way it's supposed to, you wouldn't have the problem.
After Dane gets finished cutting that piece that's a little higher than the sidewalk, that'll solve that problem from your neighbor. But I still think when it rains real hard, Leon, your water spout is gonna have enough water coming down that it's gonna overflow that little swale that you have.
But before they put the curb that high, any excess water that went out into the street over the concrete I had there up to the curb.
The curb was that high though to direct the
No.
water, right?
No,
The curb was that high to direct the water to the drains, to the.
they put the curb 3 inches higher than my sidewalk. Now, if you go down to the corner, they have it the right with the sidewalk, where they put the handicap ramp to the last slab. As soon as they hit that last slab, you can sit there and look and see where it goes up. Thank God we didn't even stop and told them that it wasn't right. I told the contractor, I told the engineer. The engineer's answer was, well, if we didn't do that, you'd have the same problem you had before. We just spent $125,000 to correct the problem, even with all the rain before. I never had rain on my sidewalk until people parked their car against the curb and it went up over the curb. As soon as it got down past in front of my house, it went back out in the street because the sidewalk was even with the curb. And I had a little till on my sidewalk so the water went out.
These sidewalks you're saying are being undermined. These are on the side of, what is that, East Street, correct?
No,
You say,
no.
Is that on Second Street?
you're saying those sidewalks are being undermined?
Yes,
I was up there during a heavy rain, Leon,
yes.
and this seems to be your problem. Every time it rains heavy, I think you think your sidewalk's supposed to be free of water. I get water on
I'm
my
not saying
sidewalk.
free of water. I'm saying the water running down the street. The water that's running down the sidewalk from above, everybody else's sidewalk pitches out. And the curb is even with the sidewalk.
I looked at your sidewalks. I don't see them pitching in towards your house.
No, that's correct.
Well, then what is the problem?
What's the problem? When you have a valley, and you have water running down, the water's going between the cracks in the new sidewalk, the newer sidewalks, and going underneath. They never backfill. When they backfill that, after doing the curb, they never packed underneath my sidewalk. So it's all hollow. So when water comes down, it's going the least resistant, which is going under the sidewalk. Some of it goes down. And when it gets down, where they put the handicap, the water spreads out the whole sidewalk. And eventually, that's going to undermine. And as far as saying that down on East Street, those sidewalks used to be curb and sidewalk was level.
Until we did the work, now you're saying they've gone down 3
I'm not
inches.
saying that. I said that.
Because I'll tell you truthfully, I know one wants to say here, but I'll tell it to you. I'm not getting you new sidewalks for your house, if that's what you're looking for. Okay? Because, and don't tell me you didn't have a water problem before we
I
fixed those
didn't have
streets.
water problems.
You just said you didn't have water problems,
I
right?
didn't have water problems.
Well, we sure had a flood going down 2nd Street on that side, and I saw it reach your sidewalks.
Not up over top of it. It didn't run down my sidewalk.
I'm telling you, when it rained, you had water on your sidewalks.
Now I
Just
do.
like you do now.
No, I didn't.
You're not going to get dry
No.
sidewalks, Leon.
No, I disagree with you.
Well, then disagree with us. Because
Not
you threatened
with-
this,
not
you
with
threatened
you.
this with
I'm
litigation
disagreeing
last time.
with
This
you.
was supposed to be an executive session.
Yeah. Go down there when it's raining like,
I went down there Friday when it was
Yeah.
raining.
what, after it stopped?
No, while it was
Take-
raining.
take a-
I didn't see your
I'll
sidewalks
tell you
any
what.
worse than anybody
You
else
come
on that
up,
side
you
of
come up
2nd
my
Street.
house tomorrow, I'll fill up a 5-gallon bucket, and I'll go up there where that curb, where the sidewalk is, the water's running down from that spout, and I'll show you how it's running down there. Don't sit there and say, come down there after it stops raining. and say-
I didn't say I went there if it stopped raining. I said it was
Well,
a
you
while
sure
of rain.
hell ain't get out
And
of
you
trouble.
got lots of complaints, but you want us to do everything for your sidewalks, and we've already done them.
You didn't do nothing for my sidewalks. You put a handicap ramp down there. I'm not asking, if the sidewalks, I have.
And that's
sidewalks.
what goes down there in the corners, a handicapped sidewalk.
Right. But look at the water way it runs across that. It covers the whole sidewalk.
Anybody else?
I'm Phil Herr, I live at 207th Street.
basically, I really like the area, I gotta say, so I'm glad to be here. The laundromat is really making a lot of noise. I'm gonna pass it through these out and pass it down. I'll get you going. And I reported this September 17th, gave it a week. Trying to be really patient. This thing's hitting 72 decibels at 1:56 a.m. every day. And I can't sleep. I mean, I'm just revolving my life around it, so I can go to work. But it's,
So you had reported 72 decibels.
I reported, you can see the averages here. Now, I just have that phone called Decibel X for the record, so I'm not registered for it. I'm not, licensed to read a meter. But this is what I'm reading, and I just know it's loud at night. And, there's an ordinance type thing. I don't think this is over the limit. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
There's a noise ordinance.
Paul, can I weigh in? Yeah, Dane and I were down there, it was the 30th day, wasn't it? What, the 30th? Yeah, it was either Halloween or the day before. And I've been down there several times. I have a meter on my phone as well as a handheld meter I purchased myself. Those reading, I did a lot of research to be a packet here. The only thing I wasn't sure of is whether or not, because of the engineer's report, there's a few, I typed the law here from the zoning ordinance because they didn't have a copy here, but the receiving land use category has to be measured with like residential. I just checked with Steve. They're the agreed party, not the people making the noise. So you don't do 70. And if you go by the, whether it's a pure tone, they have an oscilloscope as well. And I checked that, and it's pretty close to a pure tone. If, the only thing more perfect would be in a lab, I think. It's that sinusoidal wave. So that lowers it by 5 decibels. So without going into this thing that I put together in 4 pages, bottom line is their decibel readings have to be somewhere between 45 and 60, depending on time of day. I witnessed them as high as Dane was at 82, right? 82, 83. We got there in the day. The maximum off the limit is going to be much less at 2 o'clock in the morning. So they're definitely over. I don't think I've ever been there when the noise was on that it was legal, within the legal limit.
Okay. He has purchased, the laundromat they have purchased ducting, and they were going to, and they were going to angle it up so that it wasn't, and then we're going to point it. So he bought 150 foot of ducting, right? Or some.
Yeah, he said he was send me the slip of
Right,
it.
so his plan was to buy 150 feet of ducting, and instead of ducting it out, pointing towards your house, they were going to run it, point it at the parking lot where there's nothing there, so that the majority of the noise would face out. So well aware, that Delta Wash is well aware, and they had assured me they were trying to be a good neighbor by trying to take care of the noise. And they're actively pursuing, since he's a tenant, actively pursuing trying to fix it, but he needs to buy the equipment, and also needed the landlord or the building owner's permission to make these adjustments. So he's they're sympathetic to your complaint, and I said he wants to be a good neighbor. He wants to keep the noise down. So you're doing the right thing by bringing it to our attention. We've been pushing around, trying to get them to do something. So you did get something from them that he did by an elbow, right?
Well, whatever he did didn't work. I don't know if that's the big ones you said were new.
No, you can look at that. I mean, this is Sunday, and we're hitting 73, and I respect that he's trying to be a good neighbor, but when he's pumping 72 decibels
That's a lot.
at 2 o'clock in the morning, that's not being a good neighbor, I don't even think you should be starting that stuff up until 7 a.m. I can't sleep. I've been nice.
We We've also.
So who allowed him to do, so now he gets to break the law until he decides to fix it?
We've also talked to him about changing his hours of operation and not starting up at 2 o'clock in the morning or 1:30 or 2 o'clock
That
in
should
the
have
morning.
been talked about before we started doing it.
Do you know that that's the?
I mean, does he have to get a permit for that, or he just does it and get a permit later? How's it work around here?
He just moved in.
I'm serious.
You know, around
I
2
can
a.m., legal limit would be 45, and that's, you know, it exponentially goes up for every 10 decibels, so we're almost at 8 times the legal limit.
So since they've been in, we've been fighting with them. We're trying to do everything we can. I mean, I again appreciate it. It's not, you know, you got the attention of the and we got enough documentation. You know what the next step is legal.
Well, the next step for me is waking up at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I have one question, sir, for you, Dave. These decibel readings, was that with, did you notice new venting on the building? I mean, has he put that new venting up yet?
Not
So
the
what
one
I've
we-
noticed is the vein has gone up, and actually now it has like a vinegary smell. It's still coming up, it's the side building. If you look at the top one that says 74, that's on the ground. I'm getting this reverb from the wall, so it's actually, the reason I'm the one that's the loudest is it's hitting me the loudest. I've done readings around, and it just is echoing right at our front door. It's just nuts. And he has a venting up, he has that side pipe, and there's like about 3 or 4 different levels. There's a low level that's around 60, sometimes 2 or 3 are on, you know, it's
Yeah.
a different variation.
But since it started for you, did you see a change in the venting? I mean, we're wondering if the venting he's gonna,
Well,
my
yeah,
tenant's gonna put in.
What I have noticed is the venting is going up into windows right above, so I don't know how safe that is. I don't think you can like vent to a window above, and there's air conditioning units, so I mean, it's smelling. I mean, that's another issue you guys should look at.
Last I talked to him, he was gonna vent it through the building, totally through the building, and then out. Now, when you were down, did they talk about either doing that or enclosing it and soundproof something? They were discussing two different things.
He was
They
talking
thought
about
about putting a cage around it, putting like soundproof,
material,
whatever kind of material they could
changing our
find.
hours of operation.
But there's more issues to this situation than it appears. Number one, our engineers charge us $260 for the complaint to look at it, and $65 again. So two times they looked at this complaint, and they were the prices. And number one, they don't have, our code enforcer unit of Barry Isaac doesn't have a certified meter to measure the noise level. Number two, and the biggest one, they didn't even write, or they didn't even read the rules on what to do to take the readings. Now, I've been working with Dane and Dave, and I asked them to write up this report, and it's actually, and they think it's the property line. Our engineers think it's the property line. We just got a report from Dave that it's actually the residential section where the noise level should be. So I can't see how they can come up with any kind of resolution when they don't even read the ordinance or the zoning ordinance correctly. So we have several issues here that have to be worked
Well,
out.
he did it on, he was gonna stand on top of his wall, because I warned him, I don't want him to come out and see somebody and worry about it.
Yeah,
So
but
Joe
when-
knows it's on the property, it's not,
But when
Well,
they go,
if you look at my paper, 74.2 is on the property line, 75.5 is on my property. So it's only 1 point, and that's still wrong at 74.2. So I mean, we can like say property line of my house, it doesn't matter, it's over. So.
It's over the 45.
but when the
It's
engineers,
74.2.
8 times over. When the engineers go back, or I don't want to say engineers, when the code enforcer goes back to the business owner and tells them, oh, you're right in the limits there, or you're right below. And they're telling the business owner that you might be all right. And when he's way off, and they didn't even read what the rules really are. And all the construction that goes on over there, tearing out walls, putting in vents, do they need any kind of permits for this?
According to zoning, any building modification requires a building permit.
This is getting totally out of hand.
on both ends, theirs and ours.
So with that being said, what steps are, what can we do as a group or committee? What are we gonna do to?
We're gonna address it in our executive session.
Okay.
And I did tell Kelly, the reason we're trying to work with Vinnie, and he said hopefully by the end of next week, is because if we take it to the magistrate, there was a stop work order on him of over a month, and Getter did nothing. He said as long as it's okay now, it's fine. Sometimes it takes 3 months to get a date with Getter. So my hope was waiting a couple weeks to give him time to fix it on his own would be better than 3 months, and then maybe hear him, yeah, well, you know, I have no confidence personally.
And as far as them, the engineer also said about modifying the ducting, he did say he was okay as long as he's trying to make, to fix it. As long as
Right,
he's trying to
yeah,
progress.
yeah.
As long as he was good with what he was doing too, so. Yeah, you got our attention, we got a lot of.
If you need access to my driveway, you're more than welcome, and I understand.
So if you see, you know, our borough vehicle, or you see
Yeah.
us camped out and you're at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's
That's what it is. And just for your perspective, they said the highest reading was 84, OSHA says at 85 decibels.
you need.
You know, hearing, I mean,
Actually,
you're
you're
pumping, that's how much is being pumped out, so.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
you need to be proactive. I mean, the law's being violated, it has been for months, and this gentleman has been losing sleep every night, and every day he wakes up, he suffers through it again, and at night. This is a 24/7, 3-shift operation, from what I understand, so. You know, I don't want this, I'd rather see this take days instead of weeks and months. It's already gone on long enough.
Hi, I'm Bill Smith from 93.5 Main Street, West Easton. We're having the same problem. I saw that guy over there that owns the laundromat 3 months ago. And my suggestion was to run the pipe up and run it over. He says, I got 2 elbows and a short 4-footer, and it sat there. I said, how long is it going to take? Well, that's got my attention. I'm going to get it up right away. 2 other times I went over and it was laying in the same spot. I went over with the mayor and went, Mayor, where was it?
On the floor.
He is not working with the borough. He should be shut down because he's breaking the law with the noise. There's no,
He put that elbow on over the last weekend.
yeah,
I can still hear it 4:30 in the morning at my house.
Maybe that's what I hear at my house, huh?
I turned the radio on Saturday morning, 4:30 it came on. I had the radio on and the wife woke up. She says, you could hear the noise and I got the radio 3 feet away from me. And I mean, it is bad. I don't know if you've been there. I don't know how it ever got zoned. The ceilings, paint's peeling off and all. I didn't get it tested. I got a piece of the paint. He is not working with the borough. And if you walk up there, those buildings should be either condemned or maybe the owner fix them. Kids are going to get in there, somebody's going to get hurt. We're too lenient with that.
Don't we have a zoning ordinance that prevents businesses from working beyond certain hours, or? I thought that was in a zoning.
I think it's just the sound. But did you hear what I said before? We did do a stop work order and he worked straight through it.
Well, you
For a
got to
month.
pursue with lawyers then. You got to pursue
That's
these
what
guys.
stop
You
work
took them
order
to
is
court.
sort of doing,
You
yeah.
got to shut them down. You go in the back there, I reported 3 piles of garbage. Normal businesses have a dumpster. Go on back gate and look there. The mayor, the people up by the mayor's too are disgusted. I could get 8 signatures right on Main Street about the noise.
Listen, we're not done. And then, like Joan said too, we put a stop order, we took them to court. The judge said, as long as everything is okay, then they continue to work too. So I mean, you know how slow government works, and it's got our attention, it's got everybody's attention.
Any one of you are welcome to come to my place. I presume Kelly's too. Come there, see how the noise is. Me and the wife went there Saturday morning. You go 4 foot up behind his building here, you don't hear the noise. You go 4 foot on this side, and it just bounces up the 9th Street because I was up there part.
Okay. Thank
But
you.
he is not working with the borough. And that place is a wreck, and I don't even know how he got zoned for it. Thank you.
Okay.
question about the Delta wash. Did he ever correct that water issue that he had?
Yeah,
Was that corrected?
yeah, he did do that, he did correct that.
Guys, one more thing. I was born and raised down in there, and that pond, if you just go down there right now, that water is green. There's garbage floating on it and everything. That spring house right there is one of the, where it gets fed there. That's crystal clear. When you got 100 gallons coming into a pond like that, and 100 leave them right away, it should be green. Peter Ross said, it'll get gone. I used to go sneak in to go swimming in there.
Not anymore?
Not no more. Just take a walk through this property.
Whose responsibility is that one?
Eric's the home, that's the owners.
And there was the amount, that whole section down there, the whole area.
And Kay owns all that.
Oh, God, I thought it was.
And he wants to put in a drug rehab. He's gonna work with us. He ain't gonna work with you with nothing. I told the owner of the laundromat, please, just settle this before you open a can of worms. The only thing people's bitching about is the noise. They can't sleep. Oh, I'll handle it. They're not handling nothing.
Anybody else?
One thing. I'm through Savada. I live on 819 Ridge. I just want to report that the playground on 9th Street, they have the concrete tables and benches there. One of the benches is tipped over, and it's a heavy bench to try and lift up. And also that same table where the bench is knocked over has a crack going all the way across it. And, you know, kids get on top of that, they can break it.
Okay.
Could be a liability.
Thanks, Bruce. You know that if you do have, if you do know those issues, that you could call.
Okay, yeah,
too,
well,
and-
it just happened in
Right?
yes.
I appreciate you bringing it up to our attention though, but.
The sun was out yesterday, so I had the kids.
There you go, yeah, for once. Okay, Mr. Concolino?
As you all know, I took over the job as emergency management coordinator about a year ago. I've been doing a lot of training, a lot of things, and it's time for us to move kind of into phase 2 here, and that is get some equipment. I have purchased some equipment on my own. I'm not asking for anything for that. I carry cones in my truck now. I have my truck lettered, so it's identifiable as an emergency management vehicle in a borough. But the next real phase, according to the county, we need to have a radio.
Okay.
I don't have a radio, and you have somewhere in your packet tonight a submission for a portable radio.
Okay.
And I'll explain to you, there's 2 types of radios. A portable radio and a fixed radio that goes in a vehicle. Really, both are necessary. I know it sounds like a lot of expense. The portable radio is going to run you about $1,000. This is the identical radio to what the Safety First Volunteer Fire Company carries. And it will be programmed to be able to communicate, I believe, with them and as well as the county. The radio, portable radio, is good for when you're out of the vehicle, you're around, and we'll do in a short term here in the borough. It is a 5-watt radio, and it lives on batteries. It comes with 1 charger. The vehicle radio is a hardwired radio that will be put in my vehicle. It's going to cost the borough maximum about $1,400. I think it's going to be cheaper than that. But I'm giving you a little higher estimate for next year's budget. I'd like to see that budgeted next year. That would have a larger antenna. It's wired into the vehicle so that while you're out and riding around, you're not burning up the batteries. Because the charger for the portable radio is going to be, it's 110 volts, it'll be at home. So you're not able to charge it. I'm asking you tonight to consider approving up to $1,000 to purchase a portable radio and get us started into that. And then next year, to budget some money for expenses. Most of my training is free, but there are expenses involved in getting to it. I spent 3 days in Harrisburg last month. I stayed out in a hotel because it worked out, to me, less expensive than driving back and forth, in my truck. But I'm asking you tonight to consider that. The other thing I think we need to start looking into, and I've talked with Joan about this, and I think you guys need to look at it, we need identification. The borough needs to come up with an identification system for all officials, all employees, and all appointees. In the case of a disaster, this is one of the things that PEMA recommends. How do we know who Dane is? Dane, I'm assuming you're going to want him to be here during a blizzard. Well, if the state has already shut down the roads, except for emergency personnel or necessary personnel, he has no identification to show he's on his way to West Easton any more than I have identification to show why I'm out driving around.
So what are you suggesting?
Suggesting that we look into some kind of identification card. It should be, in my opinion, a photo identification.
Yeah.
Something that says borough-wide West Easton on it. It says whether you're an elected official, an employee, an appointed official, what your title is, and so that every one of us should be carrying one.
Okay.
The other thing is, you guys and the safety committee need to decide what authority you want me to have versus Dane and Joan. And I say that from a notification. Right now, I believe the county's still calling Dane in the middle of the night. A lot of times I don't know that anything's happening. But I don't want to call the county and tell them to change their mind. And don't call them, call me, because then I don't really have the authority to call Dane out and pay him.
I gave it to you.
You know, but this is a decision that's got to be made to you guys. It should be put in writing.
Okay.
Okay? Next is storm drains. I know that was a sore subject probably tonight, but you only got one maintenance guy. We've got to look at something, especially this time of year. This is what's causing the major flooding in the area. The storm drains very easily fill up with leaks. And when you're on the topic of storm drains and all this water, I'm going to suggest we start doing some research on MS4. My understanding is very limited on MS4, but it requires water to be retained on the property it comes from. So if you have roof, non-pervious surfaces on your property, and Steve might know more about this than I do, but driveways, roofs, roof lines, I know on all new construction has to be retained on the property. And there's got to be a phase at some point in MS4 that we start phasing back these drains that are running out across sidewalks into the storm drains. You know, they cause their own problems. As you see.
I'm going to correct you on that. The water that comes off of homes and stuff doesn't have to be retained on the person's property. Those are more for developments. Those are the retention ponds you see.
All new homes that I know of, all new homes that are built. Check some of these houses up in Forks and out in Palmer are being built.
All right.
They have to be retained on the property.
All right.
And the last thing I got on my list is tree limbs. We used to, again, years ago, go around with a truck that had a big, for lack of a term, big stick that somebody stood up in the back of the dump truck, went around the borough, and checked the height of the limbs along the street lines. And the reason that was done was for the fire trucks and emergency vehicles, to make sure that they had clearance on everything they did, goes through the borough. Line of sights at every intersection. You know, it's something we gotta get back to. These are the real basics that we're starting with. Get the borough cleaned up, make it accessible for the emergency vehicles. It's not just our vehicles here in the borough that come and protect people here anymore. Wilson, ladder trucks from Palmer and Wilson are often down here. So it's even sometimes bigger vehicles than two that sit down here at Safety First. So we need to start looking at our roads, access, parking at intersections. Make sure that, not that you're gonna stop a fire truck, I'm gonna tell you, I was in the fire department. Part of your training is learn how to push the car out of the way. But rather than do that, it's a lot easier if the borough starts making sure intersections are clear, markings are painted, those kind of things. And it's a good project. Maybe do the planning during this winter, and come spring we can hit it hard. I'll do whatever it is you guys want me to do. I help. I went out last Saturday, put up the barricades and signs and stuff for the flooding that we had. I don't know if anybody knows it. A week ago Saturday, we had some major flooding on Lehigh Drive again.
Yeah, we did.
At most times, it's about 18 inches on the road down there. 18 inches of 2 feet, and you got cars trying to drive through it. They will not obey the barricades. You also have something that we need to look at is at the Johnson property along Lehigh Drive. He has broken the property up into multiple pieces now. And because of the propane facility that they installed, my understanding is he's had to lock the back gates. That property has to be secure because of the propane. Therefore, there's no longer a back exit for many of the other businesses that are down the far end. They're coming up through the floodwater because it's the only way to access their business. I stopped the guy last Saturday and basically told him he needs to go to his landlord and tell him to call me or the borough, because we need to come up with an emergency plan down there to divert. He has to come up with a back entrance somewhere, in my mind, to not allow traffic. We don't have the authority to open or close Lehigh Drive. That's state. It's a state road, and therefore they close it. But it's our problem that we have allowed businesses down there that require the use of that road. And we've allowed them in with basically no rear entrances, zoning. Again, this goes back to, I think Dave or Dan had said that we're opening up these businesses down there. And I don't know if you're aware, but there are George himself told me, over 330 tractor trailers stationed down there now. And the state guy looked me in the face and said, you guys really created a problem, because you have a road right now that floods regularly with no exit out other than under the railroad bridge here or out Lehigh Drive. And I don't know if you're aware, but in the Wilson Borough portion of Lehigh Drive, past Lennon Hill, there's a culvert under the road, large culvert. PennDOT is about to close that down to truck traffic. It no longer, they feel, is safe for the large rigs that are going through there, meaning the only exit is down through Easton or through our borough. So, just some things to think about from,
So the radio that you're talking about, what's the talk time on this radio?
I'm not sure what it is. It's about, I think, 4 or 5 hours on battery.
You only got the one recommendation, the one radio. This is what
I recommend that because number one, it's identical to what the fire department uses, and they did a lot of research and work up before they bought that. They always used Motorola before. They've gone to this. It's a little bit less expensive than Motorola. It's a Harris Tate, but it's a very high quality government public service radio. Number two, we've always bought our radios from two-way communication for years here. The radios that were in our trucks and everything before we decided to pull them all out were with two-way communication. They're a local Bethlehem company. They've always serviced our radios, they've always installed our radios, and they're local and they're handy to deal with when you have a problem.
You got range on these radios too, right?
What's
You
that?
got range on these radios?
The radios work off of repeaters that are sponsored by the county. So you have, again, the small radio, the handheld is a 5-watt radio. That limits the range. So you have to be, if you're in a valley, in a building, a lot of places that they don't work. That's why they also recommend the vehicle radio, which is a 25 to 40-watt radio, depending on which frequency you're on. And that, with the external antenna, gives you a much longer range. And it's, you know, you can have anywhere from 30 to 40 miles depending on line of sight.
Would you be able to use the radio in the truck as your regular radio too, or are they two totally different things?
It's really two different things because you spend time out of the vehicle.
I mean, that's what you can't take it out. It's
No,
not-
it's mounted in the vehicle, you know, and that's why fire departments, policemen everywhere, you know, check your police vehicle that you're gonna get. It's gonna have a fixed radio with computer and everything in it, I assume, but you're also gonna have, the guy wants to wear a radio on him, so if he's knocked down on the ground, he can call somewhere. Firemen do the same thing. You know, they have a lot of the radios, even I believe this one does, it's a lost man type thing. If you have to communicate in the wild, the detector in a prone position, it can actually notify the county that this radio's, something's wrong. It's too stationary, type thing. You know, these are built for, and I understand they're expensive, but I look at, you know, we have a, what, $500,000 budget here, you know, $1,000 for a couple $1,000 for radios to make the emergency manager a safer position and to be able to communicate. You better remember that you get a disaster in the area. And I don't want to be the alarmist and say that it's ever going to happen. But I had a director of PEMA say, I told him, I said, we're just a little 1 square mile borough, so what? I said, we don't have any emergencies there. He said, tell that to the people in Shanksville.
Bill, do you need your ham radio technician license to use that?
No.
You don't?
No, it's an authorization by the county. The radio will be programmed at two-way communications through the authority of Todd Weaver, the director at Emergency Management in Northampton County. He will tell them what frequencies to put in, what channels it can be put in, and I already have an identifier. My identifier for the Borough West Easton is 23EM1, meaning that just like the fire department is 23, and they have, the chief is 2351, so forth, I will be 23EM1, meaning Emergency Manager 1, for the authority of a radio. And that identifier is literally programmed into that radio, so that whenever that mic is keyed on those radios, the dispatcher in Northampton County sees my call sign on that radio. So no, there's no license required because it's a public emergency radio. By the way, I do carry a technician license.
You can also get a car charger for the portable while you're driving too, right?
They looked into it, and John came back to me from two-way communication. He came back with a quote, and it's on the bottom of your quote, I've crossed it off. But he came back with a vehicle-mounted charging station at $385 plus installation. I couldn't justify that in my mind, and because it's still, you still have the other effects of being a portable radio. If you put that in there, you still have the limited power. It's still tiny little antenna on it inside the vehicle because there's no external. So then you're going to say, okay, can I add an external antenna? And I don't know if you can. So you're looking at all these other things. I saw the money being better spent towards the vehicle radio.
All right. Wouldn't it be cheaper just to buy extra batteries and have them ready?
Where are you going to carry them on? You want me to carry a belt with 6 batteries? You know, type thing. I'm not being funny.
Maybe you could put them in the glove box of your truck.
But they got to be charged all the time.
Right.
So I've got to take them in every night and charge them.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that, but again, Matt, you're still looking at the other downsides to the portable radio. The portable radio is limited in power, limited in antenna, so all you've solved is the power problem. By buying batteries, by buying a car charger, by buying all things.
Well,
You're
because
still-
you're asking me to put a borough radio into your private car.
which is the property of the Borough of West Easton, and at any time can be recalled by the Borough of West Easton. I mean, I'll sign a receipt for it, or however you normally do it, but fire chiefs and other people have these radios all the time.
What's your priority, the handheld or
The handheld first, and I'd like to see the budget for next year included sometime next spring, and we can look at getting the other radio.
Alright.
You can get a roof-mounted antenna and hook it up to the portable.
I don't know that these portables accept, have an antenna input. These are, mil-spec, high-grade.
Those VHF handheld ham radios.
I have a handheld ham radio. I have a general license, and I do have a magnetic mount antenna for that, but I don't know how the antenna, I haven't seen this radio in my hand to know that it's possible.
It's still, it's important. All right, thanks, Bill.
I think he brought up a lot of good points. It's good to see you at the meeting, and he brought a lot of good things to detail. But I definitely like the identification and maybe switching some of the things that we need to do. But I think it's definitely something to revisit and we need to talk about. So.
All right, engineers report?
There's just the two things. Everybody got the plans in their email. They asked that you approve the final plans. That was sent out. And then the second thing was she wanted to know if you were interested in her starting to get together to apply for grants for the future trails. As of now, they have a 50% match. We were given 100 free hours of grant prep. We've used that up for the year, so that now they would be charging us. So I have no idea. I'm thinking they're not $20,000 grants. I'm thinking they would probably be like 100,000. We have to match 50. 200,000. We have to match 100. So my thinking was it's probably not the time for that, but obviously I'm just giving you the information.
It is kind of, because we're
being on
planning our budget for next year.
Being on the grants committee, I'm recommending we put off having them apply for future grants at this time. We don't even have a report back from the Trestles yet. So I don't think there's any reason to put out any money just yet until we find out what's going on with the Trestles, and then we have a new year, we can get those 100 hours free again.
But we need to know budget wise for 2019 if we need to match $50,000.
I would keep it the same as it was this year, because like we talked about at the Trails meeting, we expected them, the Trails people, to help us with the grants. And now it seems we've started, which it needed, which it happened to be, we needed a trestle inspection. But if they were blowing smoke up my butt, then we're not going to move forward for a couple $100,000. Right?
And I was at that initial meeting where they basically said, you're a small borough,
Yeah, we're
one of
gonna
us,
help you.
you work with us and we'll
Yeah.
take care of the finances. And now, because when she said it was a 50-50 match, she said, you might be able to get other grants to go with this grant, but.
Final, we need a,
I'd like to interject something. I mean, Pete and Matt went to the first meeting of D&L up in Northampton Borough. Walked the trails. Matt and I and one of the, who was that fellow that we walked the trail, the railroad line with?
Ryan
And everything was gonna be taken care of. It's not gonna cost this borough anything. I don't wanna hear anymore.
That's my personal opinion on council.
One thing we definitely need to see is, so if they're telling us we already have our hour limit, where are they recording this? And I'm not knocking down Barry Isaac's reputation, but this is something that we definitely need to see the log of how many hours you put in on what projects, on what grants did you apply for.
Yeah, there's been a lot, I mean, they've done a
We
lot
need
of work, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
Yeah, I don't know, do they, when it's zero, do they send that in, or they just doing that? I know she said that by the time we get this report, it might be like March, and even February, because they said once they're done, it could take like up to 90 days, which even with the free one, that's how long it took. But the fact that she said it was a 50% match, and I've never seen any of these grants talked about that won at least 100,000 at least. So that to me is a lot of money to maybe sort of kind of do something at some point.
While we're on the engineer's report, when they start going into this final plan for the maintenance building on Ridge Street, I'm gonna hold my comments till that comes up.
Well, that's,
We need a,
I was gonna say, that's in here too, there's a letter, that was also in your email, it's also in your packet about what all they needed to do. So you would be approving for the shell of the building to go up, which we have to do because you have the contract. You can't say, no, we're gonna wait. You have the contract with Dutchman, the shell of the building has to go up. They were hoping we could put it in once we had the electric, but you have to have, in that letter, is the other 9 things that has to be done, so that would be phase 2. However, if you use it and no one knows, then that's what it is. But I guess it'll be a 5 or 6 inch drop, you know, like the door has to build up for when you put the concrete in.
They're the ones that wrote up the advertisement and specifications that went in the
No,
papers.
we went on to do the specs.
Well, they're the ones that wrote up the act
Right.
and told everybody what was required in order for them to get the bid.
so this final plan also includes the lighting then, right?
It's phase 2, which we'll go for in our next grant. The final thing is literally the shell.
Okay.
That you sent the email,
All right.
What we're approving is
the shell.
What,
just getting it up.
what, our spec?
Where it was,
Yeah.
the angles of it, how big it is, the size, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plan for the maintenance building.
All right. Any more discussion?
Again, this is just for the shell.
Yeah. The
Just get
electrical
the-
is gonna be
Just
phase.
get the building up, no electrical, no floor, that's phase 2.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. We're gonna hold off on the trails.
And what the color,
Well, you should actually comment before the final vote is taken.
I did.
You said yes, no, and...
I said any further comment?
Well, I was in conversations with Dutchman, and I like to see the line item, John, I like to see the line item bill from the engineers, because Dutchman told me that they could have put this pole barn up a month ago, and they've been going back and forth with our engineers. I like to see the line item charges on that.
what, going back and forth, you mean?
Yeah, with these phone calls and the delay and
Okay, you know why there's a delay. We do not let them do the engineering up front. If they had done it up front, they would have caught all this and said, this is what you need to put in. Somebody didn't want it to be done that way. They had to throw it out and the bids were all on everything. If we had let them do it to say exactly what we wanted, where we wanted it, they figured we would have got 8 or 9 bids, but we didn't do that. So they're not gonna do, we told them they can't do the engineering to begin with because we thought you could just throw up a pole building. But we're working with grants and municipality, you can't just throw up a pole building, unfortunately. But you're welcome to come in and we'll pull the Barry Isaac folder for you, it's a big one.
Okay. Anything else from the engineer?
No.
Office?
Just real quick, I want to remind everybody about the landlord thing. I don't know if you want to say anything now or just take it to legal, the landlord.
I got a ton of stuff for legal.
You're going to do
so,
that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna roll that.
And there's a paper in there, somebody expressed a concern about what we pay for the library. I got curious and broke it down, it's in there somewhere. And on the back of it, we bought an animal trap, we used to have a big one, it's disappeared, we got another one, and I did a little research on the internet, sometimes municipalities lend them out to the people. If they have a raccoon in the garage and they want to get rid of it, or some people are trapping the cats and have them fixed and release them. Again, that's something for the future, nothing to get into tonight, to look over and bring back. My thought was it cost us $102, lend it out for $100 cash. When they bring it back, they get the full refund. That way, if they don't bring it back, we have enough money to, to replace it. Again, not for tonight, there's a million other things.
Okay. Good idea.
I'm sorry.
So the library is just for our budget consideration?
Well, the library, yeah, we pay a lot more than the others, and I didn't know if that would bother you or not, per resident.
Besides Wilson.
Right.
What does Williams pay per person?
$2.46.
And I think if,
West Easton pays $6.92 per person for the library. We paid 97% of what we, well, actually budgeted 8,700. They asked for 9, so we paid 100% of what we budgeted, right? Let's see, Wilson paid 75% of what the library asked for them. Williams Township, did they make their second payment?
they're going to, that's why I put it.
All right, so
Listen,
they're,
when you do the math, they may pay theirs quarterly, because it comes out pretty much like, so they may pay their full amount, that's what I had to do.
all right, so let's assume they paid 100%. Wilson paid 75%. Glendon actually paid 150%, but they contributed $750 because it still comes to $2.03 per resident. We at West Easton residents are paying $6.92. That's more than anybody else, and our usage from January to September was 9% of our population.
9% of the total usage.
Yeah, compared to 72% at Wilson, 18% of Williams. The Wilson School District, this is tax money. They received $64,838, 93% of what they had budgeted. So we're fulfilling our obligations. Most of the other communities are not, and we're paying more than anybody else and using the library less. That's why, as nasty as it sounds, I think we ought to reduce the budget for the library. At least reduce it, you can set some money aside. If everybody else wants to pay their 100%, we'll pay ours.
Yeah, one thing is, if we start dropping out, they'll go away.
Well, they haven't gone away for the other communities, and they're not paying their share.
If you look at the bottom, with Williams Township, I talked to the girl up there, they used to pay 21 and 22,000, then she said they're the ones that start asking for these reports, and that's when they lowered yours to 15 now, because of usage. Now, we're a lot closer than Williams is, so people can work there, and I put that little picture there, because they do stuff for the people, and like I said, it's up to you. It just kind of struck me that the ratios were kind of
Huge.
huge.
Well, this was an issue 18 years ago when I was on council. A lot of people see it as a double taxation, because you're paying your school taxes, and your portion of that goes to support the libraries, and we turn around. And it's always been most of the other municipalities didn't meet their full obligation of what they pledged. I guess that's a good way to put it.
All right, anything else from the office? Thank you. Solicitor?
I have an executive session matter for litigation, and there's an update with regard to the conditional use applications of a TIA. Both, there were, as you may recall, there were 2 applications. Both are now before the court. Both are to be heard Tuesday, November 27th. Okay. So we should get a decision presumably 30 or 60 days after that day.
Okay.
Assuming it doesn't get continued. A lot of assumptions. I understand.
So
Just
both
keep
of
it
them
up.
go at the same time?
Both of them will at the same time.
Saves some time. All right. We are moved to executive session. We're out of executive session at 8 o'clock. We discussed a couple of things regarding litigation and some other items. We're gonna make some motions following that, follow up on that. So, first off, I would need a motion to approve up to $450 for emergency management coordinators' expenses.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion regarding the emergency management coordinators' expenses?
Again.
Up to $450 for this year, and then we're gonna work on next year. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Another issue we talked about was collection of sewer fees and our inability to collect them from one of our residents. We'd like the solicitor to send her a letter. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to authorize our solicitor to pursue collection of sewer record fees owed by Ms. Giambo.
I'll second.
All right. 2 seconds. Any further comments? Okay, none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Finally, need a motion to allow a solicitor to send correspondence to our regarding ordinance number 966 for the residential treatment center. Our solicitor to send a letter regarding the ordinance 966. Anything else?
Yeah, the motion by Borough Council's will would be the motion to authorize my office to enforce ordinance number 966.
Okay, enforce ordinance 966. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, Council President's report. First of all, I would like to, today's Veterans Day, and I'd like to recognize even some esteemed veterans on our council and the service that they provided, and anybody in the audience. We wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be talking about what we're doing without the sacrifice of a lot of veterans. In addition, I'd like to give the mayor a little credit. On the news today, they talked about the memorials and the time and effort that they put into that, and that looked really good too. So I'd like to recognize our veterans and the sacrifice that they made.
Thank you. And that includes you too, sir.
All right. Secondly, last meeting we visited electric pricing from APPI, and the motion died, and I would like to revisit that motion again. The electrical pricing from APPI, I don't know if Pete, you have a little bit more information on that, current information regarding our so I guess what we're trying to do again is we visited the last meeting was we're trying to change electrical suppliers. The change may result in a cost savings of about 18%.
18% per
Right.
year with the contract to be renegotiated in the 4th year.
No, it's 15%.
Now it's 15%. Okay.
We just need another motion.
So we just need another motion to approve, switching our electric supplier.
And is that still Constellation? I'll make the motion to change electrical suppliers to Constellation.
All right.
No second.
All right. And is there any further discussion regarding this?
I just want to say, this is the business that I work for.
Mhm.
You handle these suppliers, just make sure that you, at the end of that contract, because you're going to go on a variable rate,
Right.
and then that's when it's going to get more expensive.
So I appreciate that, and we had long discussions with APPI, since APPI is our middleman, and they cater to boroughs like us. So they said, you know, and coming to our 4th year, that we would reopen, revisit negotiations, and then we would, you know, negotiate rates at that point in time. So they're in business to help us. They make money not from us, not from our fees. They make money from the constellation, right? That's money. So if they're, you know, the benefit is to us, and the support is from us. We got this information from the PSAB. So
I don't know if Pennsylvania requires them to send you a letter prior to the expiration. I think some states do.
okay. But we'll keep an eye on it. The utilities chair, the utilities committee chairman. He's a good guy. He's a bulldog. He's not gonna let it go. So you don't have to worry about that. Well, thank you. That's all I got. Mayor?
Take a vote.
Can we take a vote on that?
All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
And Paul, when I go back to Thomas and asked him to send the paperwork, and he said they do it digital now, so they'll be sending you something that you digital sign.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
But
good.
they said you work full-time and you don't get here, you know, that often, since it's like today,
All right.
so we'll report tomorrow.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry, Mayor. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Bob Mahady, what is the status of the paperwork for the police department for the borough of West Easton?
You know the answer already? I think last Thursday, we received correspondence, maybe 2 Thursdays ago, we received correspondence from MOPEC, which is, it's kind of cool to read, but it says that, it reads West Easton Borough Police Department from Harrisburg. So, that was a pretty big step. They said it's the first department in 30 years that's been approved. So that's why it takes a little bit longer. First approved that was not a prior police department. They don't consider you, even though there was one here years ago, it wasn't anything that came from a region, like another police department into a regional. They come from scratch. It's the first one in about 30 years to be approved. So that's good news. It's just, I'll admit that I had about a 2.5 week hiatus. We're just taking care of some things at home. And there are some meetings with the people who handle the RMS, sorry, I forgot to come up with the word. Your records management, just so that things are secure and they're not disseminated improperly and things like that, the reporting system. So I'm meeting with them coming up. And I will say Wilson Police Department has been a very big, if it wasn't for them, this thing probably wouldn't have pushed as long as well. I was able to work with Chris, Chief Bean, up at the Wilson Police Department and kind of piggyback onto his efforts to make us move on. But it was pretty good news. We got a letter last week with an ID card that lists me as a certified police officer for Wilson, or for West Easton as well. It's just, I don't have a place to hang my hat yet, so that's coming up next. Those two things have to marry each other. And then we have to, and also I'm meeting with Mr. Holsizer with Communications Center, and he says that once we get warm here, it should be a month or 2 tops out from them making. You can't do anything without them approving it as far as the department. You can't move on without communications. And it was like a 4-month wait, and now they said at this point we're down like 30 to 45 days from the go date. What we say when we say we're ready to go.
We've also met with those computer consultants, and they got us set up with, so I guess we still have an expense with some software and including the records management and the need, our needs too. So
what you find out is everything seems like I used to have an old house, and every time I ripped out a wall, I found bad wires, and everything marries together. Like it sounds like it's so easy, but one thing marries to another. I pulled out the drywall, and I was like, oh, I need the insulation, and it just adds on. But I think we've made great steps in the last 3 weeks. Just had to wait for it until it happened. So
I mean, I guess the bonus is we have a police department.
Yeah, actually listed, I gave, I think John has a copy, Dave has a copy of the letterhead actually says West Easton Borough Police Department. That's, I've never seen that on paper before.
So the hardware and the software, I think they were talking around 13,000, I believe, for equipment, for computers and laptops. Was that?
Did they get back? It seems,
Pardon?
no offense, unless I missed it, that seems pretty high. Was that when we were talking here with that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear it on
Software and, you would, because we were gonna do tablets and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think you're better off, I mean, tablets for, I don't mean to make a shot, but talk about tablets for cars, I don't see a sense in having a permanent, something you can come in and out of, and, similar to this, so that you can still do reports on. It's not the most effective, you still need a hard computer, because if you ever worked on a laptop, it's a little tedious. I mean, you know, Steve has, a real computer actually works a little better, and that's in between. I didn't know it was that high.
Well, I figured a little high, because, you know, I was here at figures of around 12, but I wanted to go 13. It could have been way less, but, you know, so you're in a ballpark of 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, I just have to see, I've been looking, I've passed just the whole side of it too, or even see. I think it just has to be secure, it just can't be released there. But also, everything kind of has to marry together, like I said about the open the walls, also there's drywall work to be done.
That might have included protection for any thing that comes into the police department or any of your reports.
Yeah, I would hope. A lot of stuff can be still done on paper, in my opinion. I mean, we could have this discussion outside of this, but a lot of stuff could still be done on paper that's not, you know, like I said, it's something you just go and talk to somebody about, something you just give a recommendation to. It's not actually a police criminal report, but the stuff that's actually criminal, that has to be pretty well safeguarded. I mean, you can understand if someone responded to your house, you wouldn't want that to be as much public accessible as a, you know, a leaf complaint.
I think at our next safety committee meeting, we would just generate a punch list of things that we need to do to get moving.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, car, the radios, the hardware, the, you know, some weapons and stuff like that too.
Well, before I go on with what I have, Dane can give us a report on the inside. I painted the outside, aluminum and doors. So that's done. I think if you go by there, I think it's a big improvement. And how about the inside, Dane?
Okay, the main roof's been painted. The lobby is remaining. It's a matter of some trim, some flooring, and it looks like this week I'll have at least 2 days up there, the way the weather looks.
Okay, thanks. The next thing I have is police vehicles. It's been 2 months since I mentioned anything about vehicles. I don't know if anybody else wants to raise their hand and say they have a lead on vehicles. You got to remember, I did a lot of networking since 1980. County council, county executives, judges, supervisors, chiefs of police. I've been around the block a lot of times. Now, some of the cars that I mentioned were stripped and sold at auction. One of them remains fully equipped without a radio, but everything else. Another one might become available with everything but a radio. And last week I got a phone call from Chief Palmer in Palmer Township. He wants to give us 2 of the vehicles for free. One of them is fully loaded with a radio, divider in the back seat, lights, everything. But when you get something for free, you know you have to put something into it. So, the first vehicle is a 2014 Ford Explorer. It needs either a radiator or a water pump. Needs a new steering rack, and you should put 4 new tires on it. The other vehicle is a 2011 Ford Crown Victoria like the one that was out here. That car can almost be put on the road with a little cosmetic fixing, oil change, lettering, and that one doesn't have a radio. But otherwise, it's fully loaded with lights, good tires, almost ready to be put on the road. So I had the mechanic that back in 2016, when we had a major snowstorm, and both trucks broke down at the same time. The new truck, for one reason, Dane, what was that, something about the front end? I had to go back to Key Pontiac, or Key GM, whatever it was.
The equipment was wired backwards, right from the dealer.
And the bigger truck, the whole rear end went out. So there we were, in the middle of a snowstorm, 2 trucks down. So I called in a mechanic that came in. We got the truck back into the garage. He tore the whole thing apart, which an estimated cost would have been around $4,000 or $5,000 to replace everything. He did it for $1,500, I believe it was. So he went up and looked at these 2 cars. He figures all together, labor and parts, we could get these cars on the road for probably less than $3,000. So I'm asking council, you want these cars? Make a motion.
If they are free cars,
Just with repairs. Have you had a chance to look at
I don't think I saw those, I did see the other car.
them? What about,
I didn't get to the other car yet, that's a different story. I'm talking about the 2 Palmer Township cars.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and get these cars for free.
you beat me to it. I'll second.
you want a second? Yeah. Do you guys have any more discussion on
I'm
that?
surprised they're not in the parking lot yet.
True.
They're probably out there right now.
But, I guess, Robin, my question for you is Ford Explorer 2014 and 2011 Crown Vic, that works good for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Jim did his homework, if they saw a mechanic, I was looking up this information here, but the mechanic looked, I would just always recommend that the mechanic look at it. Somebody you trust, that sounds like somebody you trust.
I mean, the car runs or whatever, but I mean, it,
Right, well,
Ford Explorer and the...
Well, the recommendation you have is to get 2 free cars, in which case you take it to a scrap yard. If you don't like it, you take it to a scrap yard and get $300.
I was gonna say, we're in discussion, so if they're free cars, I'm all for free. I love free.
Just for
And then we'll decide later if they're worth fixing, if something else that we don't know about as well.
Well, just for more information, they both have batteries, but we had a jump start at the start, and when they started, the engines in both vehicles were excellent. I mean, they ran really nice.
It's a bonus if they start.
And
I'll last a whole lot.
That's your criteria, it starts, it doesn't smoke.
This is a 2000 Ford Explorer Interceptor. I believe that engine's probably worth $6,000 to $7,000, just the engine.
Are these the new vehicles, the old vehicles?
These are the ones that...
We already talked about it.
No, these are the ones that I said may be available if Palmer Township releases them. And these are the ones, we started
Where
them
do we
up.
stand on this motion?
We're in discussion.
We started them up, we went underneath, we checked
Wait,
everything.
hold on, everybody stop talking. Aren't you on, isn't the motion the 2 free cars?
Yes,
Are you talking about the free cars or something else?
yes, no, these cars that
Yes,
were
that's
actually
Free cars,
inspected,
something else, which one are you talking about?
free cars.
All right, then stop, you're ahead of the game.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that they run. The engines are really, sound really good.
Palmer Township uses Smitty's garage right
All
now.
right, we're gonna, we have a motion and a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
The next thing, if we want a car that is for sale, that's used, the one car that was out here, Rob had the opportunity to drive it around. That's the one with the push bar on the front, fully loaded, new tires. I even opened the trunk and even the spare tires new. He drove it. It's fully loaded, everything but a radio. That car might still be available. Or one just like it that's totally repainted black. So my question to Rob is, the car that you drove, what was your opinion of that?
It was pretty good. You couldn't tell because Lehigh Drive was,
Yeah.
it's like a, it's like Vietnam. It's tough. It's all over. But it looks good. It runs, pretty good. I just, like you said, does that one checked by a mechanic too?
Yes.
Yeah, as long as it's something you trust. What was the price on that one?
$3,500.
What year was that, Dan?
So that's that black one that was out here.
What year is that?
2010, I believe. So you can wait on that because the county car that they talked about still wasn't released. That was an SUV, Ford Explorer too. And that one wasn't even, that's still not released. But in the meantime, keep that in consideration.
Okay.
That one, or the one that's painted totally black, that's just like that other one that's black and white.
We're already getting,
And,
how many do we need?
well, you know what, if you get 2 free cars, you should have at least 2 cars that have to be worked on, or the other one just cosmetic, but you need at least 2 cars and maybe 3.
Yeah, if we do one more thing, just with that car, that black car that has the markings on it.
Yeah.
On the back of it, I think you know this, on the very back, I didn't see it at first, but it says, you can tell where they took the decals off, and I believe it says WarminsterTownshipPolice.com.
Yes.
They'll be honest with us, it's not in their possession anymore, if we just call down there. And I wanted to do that, but if we just call down there and say, hey, what do you think, is this most places will say, stay away from that, or, yeah, that's your car.
Yeah.
I mean, you would do that yourself.
Right.
It's out of your hands anyway.
We'll find out for the next meeting.
Yeah, we call it out there.
And for the price,
It is a very nice car. Like, it's actually really nice. I'm a little surprised how nice it is. But it has like 110,000 miles. It's not crazy.
yeah.
But it's 110,000 is no big deal anymore apparently. It was in 1987, but now it's not.
And we keep saying, when you do break down, you have to walk 2 blocks to get back to the.
Right.
The maximum speed limit is 25 miles an hour, so.
So
You
keep
can probably
that,
coast downhill to get back.
keep that in mind because we have a budget. We do plan on spending money, and I think through finding things like this, will give us a heads up on the future of this department. So keep these other cars that are ready and ready for the road right away. Keep them in mind for the next meeting because I'll get more information. And hopefully that county car will be available to look at.
How
That's
soon
all.
can you get the cars from Palm?
Pardon?
How soon can you get the cars from Palm?
I told them we had a meeting Monday night, which is now. We let them know Tuesday.
So that means we can get the cars when?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Alright. You need
I'll
a
come-
tow
I'll come
strap
with
or
you.
anything? Tow strap you need?
But if Rob, if there's any cars that you like or anything, make sure you get Carfax and stuff like that. Just get some information for us so that way we have something for us to see and get some details.
I didn't even find the cars.
I mean, when these start, pass them your way. Just start,
I mean, the Carfax part of
you
it.
grab those.
The thing is with Carfax with other police departments,
Yeah,
they're in-house, so
Yeah.
you're not gonna see those they're not reporting that to anybody.
yeah.
That would be something that went through a car insurance company.
I forgot to
I know what
mention,
you mean though.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention one thing. Palmer Township also supplied me with both vehicles' service records.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's pretty-
We don't have.
I don't, I thought I had them with me, but I just have prices on those.
That's right, since they're free, we'll wait for you.
Did you have anything else?
That's it.
What about the hazard mitigation?
That's coming up for you guys on the,
No, that was under you, Dan.
oh, that's under me? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I see that. Pete and I have been going to these mitigation meetings for over a year now, and once a month. And they took a vote, when was that, the last meeting, Pete, they took a vote on accepting the mitigation plans with the government?
October, yeah, October.
And they wrote up a resolution for each community in Lehigh and Northampton County to be passed And that means, and it's in front of you, there's no resolution number on here, it's 2018, whatever they fill it in with, Joe. And that means if we ever have a disaster, and when I say disaster, I'm talking about floods, hurricanes, and snowstorms, like we had in 2016, where we had to call in a beam with their heavy equipment to remove the snow, and there's no place to put it. If you don't pass this resolution, and we have a giant snowstorm like that again, and we apply to FEMA for reimbursement, if it goes over a certain amount, we can get usually reimbursed 45%. I like to say 50-50, but I think it's a little less than that. And we have to pass that resolution and go to those meetings in order to get money. So we finally reached the end of the road. Matter of fact, I think there's one more meeting on this coming Thursday, but they asked each municipality to pass this resolution.
I had a motion then to carry this Lehigh Valley Mitigation Plan 2018 municipal adoption resolution. You all have this in front of you.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Ayes have it. Thanks for taking care of this, Dan. Pete. Anything for list policies, resolution, ordinances? Council roundtable.
I have a question for the office. Shouldn't this have been on your report, the dates for next year? To ask if this is good?
That we had it here first, and then David put all the new stuff together.
We have the budget dates and millage all together.
We don't need to approve these meeting dates.
We need to approve to advertise them. And try, we could get to advertise the budget and everything at one time.
So before you, everybody has council meeting dates, 2019. We did fix this up for today's meeting, then so we wouldn't be having a meeting on a holiday. I need a motion to advertise.
Wait, can we first decide what we're going to do about Veterans Day next year? Do you want to keep it Monday as a holiday, or do you want to do it the Tuesday after? That's another question mark.
It's a burden for the office to have to do that because you guys are off.
I'm not even attend today. I'll take a Wednesday off.
Rather than a Tuesday, we do it a week before.
Well, that's what we, that's what, before you vote, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, I'm asking if it's, I mean, we could make it, rather than a Tuesday, which is gonna confuse everybody, can we do it the first week in that month? The first month?
I think as long as we advertise it, it's okay.
That would make that date
November 4th.
November 4th.
Is that okay, Steve, since it's a regular meeting? Like the other, like what was Christmas Memorial Day, was just the fourth meeting, which isn't.
No, you can pick whenever you want. I mean, you never have to pick a schedule. I know traditionally we always have because it makes sense.
Right. I mean, we can say the second Monday, except for November be the first Monday.
Everybody on board? November the 4th for the, instead of doing it on Veterans Day? We're just motion to accept the dates and advertise.
I'll make the motion.
And just, sorry, Pete, and just so everybody knows, we're going with the third Monday in May because we waited till the 4th, we'd be going to Memorial Day.
Yeah, that would do it.
Which we ran into this year, so we just made it a week.
Okay. For our second meeting.
Yes, if needed.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, this is,
That's a crown vic.
you made it the second?
The third, our second meeting would be the third.
Make it second meeting.
December 27th, which is Memorial Day.
Good. All right, Pete, accepted.
Second.
Any further discussion on meeting dates and advertising? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. All right.
Are we still on the round table?
Yes, we are.
Here's something for the round table. I would ask the other council people, when you talk to people on the street, I really appreciate not giving specific dates when something's going to start, because we don't know where we are for certain things. And when somebody comes up to me and says, I heard we're going to have this on January 1st, I have to say, well, that's only 7 weeks away, that's not likely, and I've got to make excuses for that person to say that, because I know it's not going to happen. So I'm just asking the council to be careful in putting dates out there when something is going to occur, if we don't know for a fact it is.
All right, thank you.
Can I go in and ask what, going forward, okay, we're getting the cars, what do Dan and Rob have to do with public safety to get permission to get stuff? Is that something, everything they come back has to be checked with you guys, or little stuff they can get?
Well, that's where Rob should be coming, and Dan, coming to, let's say, a safety meeting, or
Right.
even the budget meetings, and saying, this is what we need, this is what we're looking at, and then the safety committee would review it, probably pass it along to the budget committee and say, Rob is recommending these computers, or we're gonna need this security program, which is gonna have to be put into the computer by an authorized agency. Some of these programs we can't put in ourselves.
I'm just trying to eliminate.
Right, so, and then they'll say, this is what it's gonna cost, and we present that to council and say, we're gonna need this expenditure for this phase of getting the police up and running.
Hey, so before our next meeting, Rob,
Yes.
can we get like a punch list, and we can just go, we can just say, we'll go through the safety committee, but we'll approve, like, there's things you have to have right off the bat, like radio, like computer, you have, like, these things, just to get us started, just to get just around, so, before the next meeting.
When is that?
We have money set aside for this year to purchase startup.
When is that?
The next meeting?
December 10th.
Or at the end of this month.
Yeah, or in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, by the 10th of next month.
You have 45,000 for startup in the budget for this year.
Yeah.
Will it have to be spent by then, or no?
No.
No.
I think that's a lot. Pretty good.
That way we can start moving. There are items we have to buy, uniforms.
No, that'd be great.
We talked about all these, we
Yeah,
talked
we did.
about all these, we covered these and
Yeah, absolutely.
so, it can't, we budgeted for next year, we work for our next year's budget, but we have startup items that we can put into, so.
And I'm gonna be setting up safety committee meetings, so I'll be looking to you to ask you what dates you can make and have some information. If you wanna make it, 3 weeks from now before the next council meeting, so that once you give the safety committee that information you have about this is what I'm gonna need and this is probably what's gonna cost, at the next council meeting, I can present it.
All right, I misunderstood something. So December 10th is the council meeting, or December 10th is the?
Council meeting.
Council meeting.
Okay, so before.
Yeah, we wanted,
Okay, I got you. I
that we
misunderstood.
bring it to council on the 10th and we say yes, 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 and then we want to get them before the end of the year.
I misunderstood. I got it now.
All right. I got one more thing for roundtable, then let's move. I forgot to mention $9,000 rebate from the Easton Area Joint Sewer Authority for our fees we paid for this year will be going into our budget for next year. That's forthcoming. I just got that.
Is that gonna be received before the end of the year?
I
or
hope
is
so. I don't know.
Well, if it's
You know how
received this
they-
year, we can't put it in for next
I
year.
know. I don't know.
And is it just for this year? Because the check
For
30,000.
2017.
Okay. No, because I'm just asking, because we got like a $30,000 rebate
That was
last
for
year.
14,
that was for-
15, and
Okay, I thought it
16.
was 13, 14, and 15.
All right, committee reports. Finance,
Well, everybody should have a copy of the budget.
where is the budget?
Did you get a chance to go through it tonight?
Well, I did provide that to her.
Dave and I went through it,
Yeah.
and they're just minor changes, not much. There's one line item that's not on there he knows about, he's gonna add to it, so.
Well, technically, I don't need to. If he thinks we're gonna get that money this year, then there's no reason to put it in next year's budget.
No, the 380, the miscellaneous,
Okay.
yeah, that's not in one of the pages, but it is now. He's gonna add to it, it's just a $50 item. The 9,000 that, on the sewer that you mentioned,
And again, I'm not sure when it comes.
okay. Well, since it's not here, we're gonna just apply it to next year.
Okay.
So that's the 9,000 for the sewer. So what we have right now is a balanced budget. We're actually $50 at the beginning. $34,000 that we gave in the sewer fund. Our capital reserve stays the same, we're not putting any more than that, that's $150,000. Our highway fund is going to be expenditure of $100,000, which highway liquid fuels gives us 35 and 36, then we have to put the rest from general fund. So, as we look through it in the committee, Paul and I, everything looked copacetic, and we're giving it to council tonight to approve or not approve, or you want to take your time and look at it for next meeting, that'll be 2 weeks, but then we have to do something.
Well, I just have a question. It may not even require a change, but, and Dave, you're head of the property committee, we discussed maybe, because we just slurried the first of the roads 3 years ago, possibly we might want to delay the actual Nova chipping of roads. We could buy a year if you want to get some more money for liquid fuels into the fund.
I think, you gotta remember, we put in for a grant to do our roads with CDBG grant
It has to be used next
that we
year.
have to use for next year.
Okay.
So
We
that-
inquired with the property, we got fuel, and he said it's gonna be about the same thing, and we have to put it in.
Okay.
And you might not have to use it, it all depends on the amount that we get from the grant from the county. Even if we get half of what we asked for, we can still do some roads.
Okay.
Now, is that for roads or because of the catch basins? Am I thinking of something different?
What's that?
Was that for when you took those pictures, like when the catch basins or the curves were that, or is this a totally
Yeah.
different thing? Okay,
Yeah, that's the CDBG grant,
okay,
that we're an entitled community,
okay.
so we should be getting
I
some.
didn't realize that was road. I have it written as catch basins.
That's the one, as a matter of fact, I want to bring this up, because Matt brought it up. That is the grant that we were going to apply for money for the monument area, to redo that, to make it a centerpiece. And through talking with the county, they said, why don't you go for a different grant
Yeah.
and match it, and go for the bigger, where you're entitled to do the roads. So we switched gears to not apply for the monument area with the county, but we got the $10,000 grant from the, what was that, casino money?
Yeah.
From the county. So I think we're in good shape. We can do roads next year.
Okay.
It all depends the amount of the grant.
Well, and you also have Front Street to finish from this year since UGI had it torn up.
Yeah, that
That's
reminds me
the only
of another
street that
thing.
needs to be done.
Wilson Borough blacktop the whole of Front Street, and then the gas companies start tearing it up already.
Is that something that we work with them and go in with them when it needs to be done?
With the
Front Street.
UGI?
No, Front Street, when they do their Front Street? like-
No, this was just a Wilson Borough.
No, I'm saying, say when they get ready to do their Front Street.
Wilson did their Front Street, and then the gas company came in and tore it up.
Tore it up, you know, after they got done tearing it
Kind of
up.
like they did to us.
And they're still working on our Front Street. I think there's still plates down there.
The big main, it's big, the pipes you put in are like this big around.
That's up on front, and that's part of Wilson Borough, and they just got done repaving it.
John, Wilson doesn't contract out, they have their own paving?
For everything? Because I know they use AMS for stuff.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of it, they're doing on their own, their machine only
Okay.
so wide, they actually have to do two trips.
A leaf loader, I guess, or leaf.
Oh, can I interrupt you on that one? Dane and I went up to do, some lady, two houses had the biggest trees that have a leaf, that their leaves fall off early. The amount of leaves that were up there, we went up to pick them up and we started up the leaf loader and it wasn't running right. So Dane told me a story about how the engine is, he might not be able to get parts for this engine, and he tried to do it back in 2014, 13, and 2015, before this new council took over, and they couldn't get a fuel pump for it. So I came into the office, and we looked up a fuel pump from another company. It was shipped to us in 2 days. He put it on. I mean, stories are out there that the leaf loader might not last another year, but I think the leaf loader runs almost like new. Would you agree or not agree?
That's pretty strong.
So, for now, the leaf loader is working excellent.
Okay, good. Never mind. So, back to your original proposition, Bob. Either we can defer to.
This is what we're proposing to council. You can accept it tonight, and we can get it put in with the dates.
I have one question. Is there a line item in here for $7,500 to do a study on sewer rates?
Yes, it's built into the engineering fees underneath the sewer budget.
What number is that? Why would it be built into the engineers if it's gone to another company?
It's still engineering.
It's not on here. It should be actually be in under 08, 40801. It says engineer meetings 1,500, that should actually be $9,000.
What is it? What number is that?
08 for sewer, 408 for borough engineering, 01 for engineer fees. It's listed as 1,500, it should be 9,000.
$9,000 rebate.
Well, I sit through the committee meetings, and I don't know how that's up to the council, but I don't agree with $7,500 for a sewer rate study. When all you have to do is get the figures and do it yourself.
Duly noted.
But that's up to the council if they want to discuss it.
But just because it's in the budget doesn't mean they have to spend it. The same way with the donation for Muse Library, they can leave it at $8,700, but when it comes time for the donation, the discussion can be made to lower it or raise it or whatever council wishes.
Budget is your best guess.
Right.
So
So,
we know it's a guessing estimate.
do you guys want to set this, bring it back in 2 weeks, vote it? Do you want to vote on it tonight?
Well, I'll put a motion out there to approve the budget and advertise it.
With the corrections.
With corrections.
Corrections.
I'll second that.
All right. And any further discussion regarding our budget? This includes.
That's according to people going in for emergency management this year.
You did, yep.
And how much?
How much you want?
3,000.
We can do that.
Pay about $600 a year, travel and expenses, and the rest I'd like to see for equipment and things that we need. May not spend it all, but I'd like to see it there.
I can give you more, but I'm not gonna give it that.
No, I think. If you want to raise it,
So that's I guess that's a motion. You put in the budget $3,000 for emergency management for next year.
We're still on that motion to approve our budget, so,
Okay.
with corrections, so
Well,
why don't we add this as a correction?
that's correct. So the motion stands, I guess. We want to make that a line item $3,000.
for emergency management.
So you're gonna raise it $1,400?
Right now, it's $600 for reimbursement of billed expenses and $1,000 for equipment and supplies.
And the radio is $1,400. So, you know, if we buy a fixed radio next year, that's $1,400. So that's why I said $3,600 in expenses, another $1,400 for the radio and $1,000
Do we have a second?
miscellaneous.
Do we have a second?
We did, we had a second. We had a second. We're in discussion.
Great.
There was motion on the budget, and then Bill asked about emergency management, so we let the budget die and then to the.
No, you gotta vote on the budget for advertising.
So with corrections, with
With the
corrections.
county
So
corrections
let's
on
correct
You could table that
Right.
motion,
If we could.
you could table that motion for a.
Hang on, hang on.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's okay, you are. So we get it right. My recollection was Matt made the motion, right? Okay. Are you willing to accept the proposed changes? Let's do it right.
Well, what changes the changes we discussed before an audience member wanted to bring up another subject?
Right.
Okay, so is that subject now included in the changes?
I'm asking you.
Oh, no, they are not.
Okay.
All right.
So then, just so we're clear on this, we're voting on the budget based on the initial changes.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I was asking.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
All right.
So was there a vote?
There was a second, there was discussion. So now the question is, we're gonna vote on it. What is that vote gonna
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, I see it.
Now I have a motion for the council to make an amendment to the budget for emergency management for $3,000.
The change, the $1,000 to $3,000. Line item, I think, is for $1,000. For equipment. Equipment was
It's
$1,000.
a total for $3,000. We can do $600 and $2,400 for equipment, $2,400 for equipment.
All right.
What do you want to put it under? Education?
Expenses, travel expenses. Most of it's mileage.
You know, we have emergency management coordinator reimbursement, $600, and emergency management equipment and supplies, $2,400. Line item 01 and 02, 41501, 41502. Is that your motion?
Yes.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Do you have anything else, Robert, for Finance Committee?
I know.
Great job on the budget.
Thank you.
Phenomenal.
Do you have to approve, I'm sorry, get into that.
What's that?
I think you're moving on. You approve to advertise the ordinance at the same village?
What was originally the original, Matt made the original motion to accept and advertise the
Yeah,
budget?
we also need an ordinance, we also need a motion to, for the millage.
Keep the millage the same for
Same
2019.
every year, yeah.
All right.
We still have to,
Need a motion to keep the millage the same for 2019?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Keep it the same.
All right. Any more discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Good job.
at least can advertise at the same time.
Anything else from the finance committee?
No.
We got the rest of the year off?
Maybe. It depends how Rob approaches it.
Oh, no. Okay. Property highway? Anything from, okay, good. Meeting, good for the rest of the year? Okay. Public safety personnel? Yeah.
Okay, well, Robert, this is where you come in. You want to set up, or not you set up, but give me some dates that would be good for you with having information to give the committee, safety committee, for police equipment and what you have lined up down the road. Now, if you need a couple weeks, that's fine.
So you're looking at dates, so they're,
I mean, it may take you 2 or 3 weeks to find the information you need, so.
was there a certain day, like Mondays or Tuesdays, or were you looking at?
Well, whichever good for you. I'm willing to work with you.
Something of that,
Rob, you can make dates, and if you don't use them, you can cancel.
Yeah, you can make a number of them.
It's better because we advertise here, then we don't have to.
I don't see anything. I'm pretty much a loser at the end of November. So. Nobody really wants to be with me apparently.
Well, we're asking you to hang out with us.
Well, you got the first week in December too. I mean, we're not meeting until,
Yeah, the first week of December is like a pretty good cushion. So like that third is Monday. My car insurance is due that day. I'm just kidding. The 3rd, 4th, or 5th there is.
of December.
Yeah, that's Monday.
Just make them all 3 days.
Yeah, we'll make them all 3. If you can make any of them, is fine, and then we'll cancel the other 2.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty open, I don't see that changing.
The only restriction I have is, they would have to be after 5 o'clock. Or, 5 on, 5 o'clock in the
That's
evening.
it. That's it for me.
All right, so 5 o'clock?
Yeah, I just work it well too.
All right, 5 o'clock each day. If you only need one day, then we'll cancel the other 2.
Do you want to make it a little later because of Desiree or no? Because she works till 5.
Oh, does she work till 5?
6:30 seems to work better for her. Or maybe she came at 10 after 6 and she rushed.
Yeah.
6:15.
Okay, how about 6:30?
Okay.
I'm not available on the 4th Tuesday.
You're not available on the 4th? Okay, so that'll be the 3rd and the 5th. You'll send her an email later. Okay, so if you can make the 3rd, we'll cancel the 5th. If you're not gonna make the 3rd, we'll cancel that one, and it'll be the 5th, okay? Working you both, if you want to.
Good.
Yeah.
Safety.
Personnel, what was it, executive session?
That was the,
Oh, we already discussed that, yeah, okay.
discussed that.
Yeah, that's it, public safety.
Excellent. The legal committee, I would like to get us together and talk about a couple of things, so. 14?
14th?
Yeah. No, I can't. '20th?
Yeah, after 5,
Yeah, 6:30.
6:30.
Okay.
You said tomorrow maybe, or also?
No, just the 20th. November 20th at 6:30.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about that ordinance. I don't have anything else for legal. Utilities?
How about, the 19th? You and Bob, either one would be good, no? How about the,
Do we need a meeting?
pardon?
Do we need a meeting?
I don't know if we actually need one.
We got everything kind of taken care of.
Okay. Just,
And we got the utilities thing done, so
installation, yeah.
we're good. So. Recreation committee?
I'm gonna wait till after the holidays.
Okay.
What's
Matt?
that, 80 to?
Grants, no, we don't need a meeting yet, but I $625, Trudy, for recycling bins. That'll cover 90% of the costs. Now, I believe the way it works is we front all the money. We put in the order for the bins. They're going to be sequentially numbered. They'll come with lids. The borough will assign them to the homes. They'll be the property of the borough. So you'll have a serial number. Everyone's different. Once they're manufactured, we hope to have them in by late spring. So, but at least we got the money. You will have a bin eventually.
What color are they?
Blue.
Okay.
Yeah, we voted on that one way back.
Yeah, Judy asked for the next meeting because it's been like a year.
We also got the 10,000 grant from the county.
Have we seen that? I heard we.
I haven't got anything official
I
yet.
heard we were approved and they voted on it, but we didn't get the check, or we didn't get the
We didn't get
okay
official notice, no.
to do it.
Oh, we'll see a contract on that recycling grant in about 2 weeks, I think. That'll have to be approved by council. We can do that next meeting.
Good. Good for grants.
Good for grants.
All right, we took care of our unfinished business, so, any new business? Any new comments?
Yes.
Leah?
All right, you had $9,000 rebate from
Yes, sir.
sewer fund. Where does that money go?
That money
technically should
is-
go into the sewer fund?
Yes,
Back?
yes,
Okay.
unless the council president deems he needs a pay raise.
The road grants, where do they come from?
So, I'm sorry?
The grant that we got for Second Street, where did that come from, the county?
Yes.
CDBG. Who is it?
CDBG.
All right, because I think I'm gonna call it county about the situation.
We just said that he's gonna file down that portion.
No, I want the whole
We should
curve,
be doing that.
the way the curve is
It's our
installed.
property to do
I want to see
anything.
if it's all right with the county, that it's approved the way it is, to create the problem that I had.
It's finished, it's what, every year? Yeah. So that's all closed down.
I have one thing when we're finished.
Any additional public comment? Yes?
I have a question. When was the last time there was any new playground equipment bought for the playground up here?
Really? Yes, I think we bought stuff last year, didn't we?
We
We had upgraded the stuff that was broken.
This one? No, I mean like something new and additional. Because I was over to User Park one day and they had this elaborate like treehouse thing for the kids to play on.
They,
We don't have anything down
they
here.
got a grant for it.
Well, maybe we can get a grant.
That's awesome. We
Because
definitely work.
the kids that go down there to play, there's not really anything for them to do down there.
That's a good idea.
But it's really elaborate
Yeah.
what they have. It's really nice.
Give that to
Yeah, I could definitely look into it. I definitely love that, like a dog park down there too. We maybe change that a little.
There you go.
Look out for the whole family.
But I know it's probably been a while since you had any new additional playground equipment.
I think we should turn the 9th Street Park into a dog park.
basketball court. I only have one.
Well, I'll honestly
All right.
go,
Yeah.
if a grant comes up for playground equipment, I'll certainly, I'll like it.
Yeah.
But it was really nice over there. There was a lot of kids over there. It looked like they were having fun.
It is nice. It really
Because
is
I know
nice.
there's kids next door to me. They're always playing in my yard. You know, they go down there in the parking lot.
Same with all the trees. There was a grant for all the trees too. So a lot of
That's a
stuff
nice
they got
addition
money.
to the park.
Yeah. it is. Any other public comment?
Besides me?
Are you gonna take any action on, are you gonna take any action on the radio?
That should be the public safety meeting, shouldn't it?
What's that?
Radio.
Portable radio? I'm going to make a motion to get portable radio tonight. I have a problem with honestly, I have a problem with the truck radio. But I mean, I'll make a motion that we authorize,
$54.
no, minus $70 for the green color.
It's to match the ones with the fire department, it's what they bought, and it's often identified as the color of Weston. Everybody in the county knows those radios. We're one of the only ones that use the Harris tape in the green, and it just, to me, it was worth the extra $70 to match what they had and be identifiable as a Weston radio. You don't want it to come in black.
Okay. They don't, so your motion is, we buy the radio and keep it black. That's the slime green.
I'll give the slime green for $70, I guess.
I second.
I'll say,
Any further discussion? Is there any other colors, Bob?
You want red, you want orange, yellow, or green?
No, Bob, you want green, I'm gonna get you a green radio.
I think it's a good addition.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
The only thing I have is that I see a lot of single people in here, some single people. I performed my first wedding 3 weeks ago in West Easton.
Who's you married?
I married a couple that live next door to this church.
Oh. You're authorized to do that as mayor?
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, how about the
Believe it or not.
I'll give you up. Just send me a check.
You only showed up for your cake.